All right, let's dive into the history they definitely don't teach you in school. We're talking about the stuff that's too brutal, too bizarre, or frankly, too brilliant to fit into a neat and tidy timeline.
So, you probably think you have a pretty good handle on history, right? You know the dates, the big battles, the famous names. But do you really know what it was actually like?
Yeah, you might want to think again. Because the past was so much more brutal, way more bizarre, and in some cases, more ingenious than you could ever imagine.
Let's start with a simple, pretty terrifying fact. For a huge chunk of history, cruelty wasn't just some unfortunate side effect of life. It was a spectator sport. It was public entertainment. You've probably seen Braveheart, right? Well, let me tell you, the real story of William Wallace's end is, well, it's far more gruesome than anything Hollywood would ever dare to show you.
I mean, just look at this. The horrifying part isn't just the pain, it's the sheer systematic cruelty of it all. Every single step was designed for maximum suffering and public humiliation. This wasn't just an execution, it was a message, a warning to anyone else who even thought about defying the king. It's almost impossible to comprehend that level of brutality. But here's the thing about the human spirit. Sometimes it just refuses to break. Take the story of Galvarino, a Mapuche warrior. After Spanish conquistadors captured him, they cut off both of his hands as a warning to his people. But did he surrender? No way. Instead, he had knives lashed to his wrists, went right back to his tribe, and led a counterattack, vowing to destroy his enemies. Unbelievable defiance.
Okay, so history isn't just brutal, it is also profoundly, deeply weird. Everyday life for our ancestors was filled with practices that to us would seem completely bizarre, or, let's be honest, just plain disgusting. Let's ease into this with a little chat about oral hygiene. And yep, you are reading that correctly. Ancient Romans used human urine as mouthwash. They genuinely believed the ammonia acted as a powerful disinfectant and, get this, a teeth-whitening agent. They would literally rinse their mouths with it. And if you think gargling with pee sounds bad, oh boy, just you wait until you hear what they were brushing their teeth with. That's right, one of the more popular recipes for toothpaste involved a lovely paste made of things like crushed oyster shells, some honey, and the star ingredient, crushed up mouse brains. Apparently, it really freshened your breath. You know what? I think I'll stick with mint. Thanks. And speaking of disgusting things, how about this for a job description? A tosher in Victorian London. These were often kids, sometimes as young as 7, who would spend their days literally wading through rivers of raw human waste, looking for anything valuable that might have been dropped. So for spending all day in raw sewage, a tosher could make around 6 shillings. Now, here's the crazy part. That was actually a surprisingly good income back then. And that fact alone tells you everything you need to know about the kind of economic desperation people were facing. You know, we have this tendency to put historical icons up on a pedestal. We treat them like saints. But the truth is, a lot of our so-called heroes had a seriously shocking dark side. Take Emperor Ashoka of India. History remembers him as Ashoka the Great, one of the most enlightened and peaceful rulers who ever lived. But before all that, he was an absolutely ruthless tyrant. He seized power, supposedly by killing his own brothers, and then built a literal torture palace so horrific it was nicknamed Ashoka's Hell. It was only after he witnessed the unbelievable carnage of a war he himself started that he had this complete 180 and changed his entire philosophy. Okay, what about a more modern genius? Thomas Edison, the guy who gave us the light bulb, the phonograph, a true visionary. But he was also a cutthroat businessman who would do literally anything to crush his competition. 1,500. That's about how many people gathered to watch Thomas Edison publicly electrocute an elephant named Topsy. Why? He did it using his rival's AC electricity, all to prove to the public that it was more dangerous than his own DC system. It was a brutal publicity stunt. But hey, history isn't all doom and gloom and electrocuted elephants. Sometimes the most desperate situations force people to be incredibly, and sometimes just shockingly, clever. Okay, picture this problem. You're Rome in the First Punic War. You're a powerhouse on land, but your navy is, frankly, terrible. And you're facing Carthage, who absolutely dominates the seas. So what do?
Well, if you're the Romans, you invent an amazing device called the Corvus.
And this is just pure Roman pragmatism. They knew they couldn't win a traditional naval battle, so they invented a giant, spiked plank that literally turned a sea battle into a land battle. It was a simple, brutal, and absolutely genius solution that completely changed the course of the war.
And that kind of desperate ingenuity, it's not just ancient history. Just look at the 2015 prison escape of the drug lord El Chapo. The man fled through a tunnel that was nearly a mile long. It had its own ventilation, electric lighting, and even a motorcycle running on a custom-built rail system. That is some serious, albeit criminal, creativity.
So, what do we take away from all this? I think it's that history is so much more than just a timeline of events. It's really a mirror, reflecting us in all our strange complexity, our capacity for incredible cruelty, our truly weird habits, and our astounding creativity.
It just makes you wonder, doesn't it? If this is the stuff we know about, what other shocking truths are still buried out there? For every story we've uncovered today, there have got to be thousands more, just waiting to completely change how we see the world, and maybe even how we see ourselves.